Hey, what's going on? Tyler here with Black Diamond Softball and Fitness, and we are throwing it back to when me and Scott Smith had a chance to sit down on the Foul Pole to Foul Pole podcast. A lot of you guys are involved with the Alliance now. You know how awesome it is. But do you know the true story of how the Alliance came about? Scott's going to tell you all about it. Check it out. Bring us up to speed on where Alliance is now, and then kind of how that got started and made the big boom, recently within the last year or so.
Sure. And I appreciate it. Probably easier to start with where it started. Obviously when COVID hit, COVID presented a lot of challenges on many fronts, right? But if we're just purely talking about the softball side of it, COVID presented some really big challenges for people like myself and other people who have teams or organizations. You're trying to figure out, hey, what do we do? What do we do? Like how do we navigate this process? There wasn't a roadmap. There wasn't a plan of action that we could follow. It really made a lot of people's hearts beat pretty fast when you're trying to figure out how to, one, keep your players engaged. Like if you're just being coached at that point, right? Like, okay, how do we train them? Like, how do we do this remote thing? Like, so many things came out of COVID really from a really good perspective. As far as how we communicate with people, like you and I are doing right now, right? It's connected us in a better way in a lot of ways. I'd like to think that we're going to get back to where it's even a closer connection, where we're shaking hands and seeing people smile and all the things that you take for granted sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we're all getting to that place. It's getting better. But what came from COVID was good friend of mine. He's a competitor of mine. I try to bash his brains in every time we take the field, and he tries to do the same to me. Kevin Shelton here in Texas with the Glory, and he's somebody you'd be smart to talk to. But Kevin and I, we talk about softball a lot, right? And I picked up the phone and reached out to him and said, Kevin, what's your plan? Like, how are you going to approach this, man? Like, we've got to figure something out. And there were some unique conversations about how, like Texas, we could kind of sense that we were going to have a little more flexibility, a little more freedom in Texas than you might have in other places. And we were all, our paths were kind of pretty well established, right? About what tournaments we were playing in, what our summers looked like every year, all those things. And it was really clear there was a lot of uncertainty about what that was going to look like across the country. Kevin and I came to the conclusion pretty fast that we had a responsibility to our parents and to our players to be have a lot of foresight, be very respectful of them, the unanswered questions that would be presented to them. Like, well, it's the simplest thing is, how do you get on a plane, right? Like, how do you get on a plane and think you're going to go from here to there and play? Like, that's not even some down to the simplest things. We started there and just said, it got to be pretty clear that we weren't going to be able to have a summer that looked like what we'd normally experienced. And so we started down conversations of, okay, you got a lot of teams in your club. I got a lot of teams in my club. Let's figure out a way to create these opportunities for them to play, right? Let's just figure out what that looks like. And that was as simple as the conversation was. Like, that's truly as simple as it started. And then, you sit on a Zoom call. We were sitting on Zoom calls like every night because you could do nothing else, right? Or even during the day. We may or may not have drank a cold beer or two in those meetings. And I drank a cold beer for sure. I can't put Kevin in the cold beer drinking part, but for sure me. But we got to the point where we're like, we're going to play each other. We're going to create these opportunities to play. Well, what if we kept stats? And what if we created this like it's like a league environment, right? Like where there's something on the line, right? It's going to be really hard to replicate all the time because what we don't want to do is just go out and play, right? We do enough of that already. Right? We play enough games that nothing matters. Like, that's a really big challenge in our sport. And, that became very clear. Like, well, let's just put the league together. And so then we were like, well, heck, if we're talking about this, why don't we just call Jazz over at the Impact? She's got a lot of teams. We can figure that out too. All right, let's do that. And then all of a sudden we got to talking and we're like, why don't we just offer this out up to everybody? Like, what if they have the same challenge? We'll just figure this out. We'll come up with these strategic things. So David McCorkle, who's on our bomber. He coaches in our bomber program. He's our vice president with Bombers Fastpitch. He's like this Google Doc freak, right? and like that's another thing that came out of COVID for me. Like, 28 years in the Army, I don't mess with a lot of Google Docs. He's a master Google. Like he has a degree in Google Doc, right? And so he put together a Google Doc. We sent it out to this database of coaches in Texas. And I swear, I tell this story all the time. Literally, I'm watching this Google Doc, and it was really an interest form. It was a Google form. Mm-hmm. And if you were interested, fill this out if you're interested in participating in what we were talking about. Literally, this Google Doc is getting filled out like in real time. Like we're just watching. We're all laughing. Like we're on this Zoom call watching this. We're sharing the screen, and it just kept going. It just kept getting filled up. And there were 400 people signed up for it. Like it was so organic. It was so cool, right? And in a lot of ways, when everything seemed like we were getting disconnected from each other because of COVID, and what happened in Texas, and I only speak for Texas on the front end of this, is it actually brought us all together. Mm-hmm. And that was really cool. So once that happened, that created a whole different, this was happening like in February, right? Or March of that year, right? So we still had until our state wasn't even open to play yet, right? Like we're having Zoom calls where we're talking about, okay, well, if we put barrier tape, we could make the dugout bigger. We could, like, we're having like conversations with ballparks, with city municipalities that are they're trying to decide whether they're even going to let us play.
Right.
But we got this list of 400 coaches who are all about it, right? So it really spearheaded the conversation, and we came up with the Texas Fastpitch League, and that's really truly as simple as it was. There wasn't this like super thought out process about how it was going to happen. We got on Zoom calls and just started talking about how can we make the sport better. Well, once that took off, then we had buddies around the country who were like, "What are y'all doing?" And we were like, "Yeah, we just told them we're going to do it." So we just shared all of our Google Docs with them, everything we had come up with, so they didn't have to recreate the wheel.
Right.
And they took it. And then that's how the Heart of America League became a thing. And then our friends out in California, we sent everything to them. And next thing you know, this Google Doc that had like 10 documents has 50 in there. And you get all these like minds. You talked about like minds. You get all these smart guys in a room, and it don't take much to get in a room to be smarter than me. But we get all these guys in this room on these Zoom meetings. And what started happening is this thing started to become a thing, right? And that's truly how it began. And I don't think people believe us when I tell that story. That's literally how it happened. And then we were able to have some relationships with some smarter people than even us, because we're a bunch of softball coaches. And we got Jamie Lowprice involved. And what we felt like, Tyler, was that we wanted to mimic college softball, right? We started saying, okay, if we're going to do this, how do we make the sport better? Right? What are some of the challenges that exist in the sport right now? One, it's super expensive. Two, people do not like stadium play. Three, you have too much travel, right? We in a lot of ways we were breaking, like me. I'll talk about myself, and I say we, but you could use your imagination. There's a bunch of teams just like us that travel 6, 7, 8 times a year, and we were breaking our athletes, right? 16 and 17-year-old girls are not meant to travel all over the country, play 7, 8, 10 games, fly the very next week and do the exact same thing. Their bodies are not built for that. We don't have trainers, right? We're playing a college softball season in 6 weeks. They play 50 games, 60 games in the course of a season. We do it in 6 weeks. So we were breaking our players physically. And so we said, listen, how can we create this sport, make it better? Well, we could create these regional environments, right? Where there's a lot on the line, right? Because we were playing a lot of showcase games. It didn't matter who won. Like somebody calls, hey, you're getting a free invite to this event or that event. And like I started in the days we were playing Gold Nationals where there was 160 teams for 6 berths. Those were slugfests. Yeah. Right? I literally grabbed my stuff, walked off the field. They're giving 2 berths. We got third, and we played 13 games. Right? Like we didn't make it. But what we were doing was creating these competitive super freaks. Mm-hmm. Right? So our competitive side had gone down. So that was at the top of the list for the Alliance and the leagues, was how do we increase competitiveness? Well, top, you have to earn it. You have to earn it. You have to earn a berth to play in the national. There's no free invite berths. That cannot be a thing, right? And then let's create an environment where there's more on the line. A lot. Let's keep stats. Because I also felt like one of the prerequisites as we were doing this, so kind of jumped ahead, but we decided to create it like college softball. So the Texas League, if you want to do the analogy, the Texas League is the Big 12.
Right.
The Southeastern Fastpitch League is the SEC. The Atlantic Coast Fastpitch League is the ACC. The Pacific Coast Fastpitch League is the PAC. Right? Like that environment replicates college softball. And that's our job at the travel ball levels, to prepare players to play at the next level, which is college softball.
Right.
Well, why wouldn't we mimic that? Why wouldn't we replicate that? Why wouldn't we do that and prep them for that environment? So we literally, when we did the Alliance, if you want to do the analogy, the Alliance is the NCAA. The leagues are the conferences. Well, the Alliance holds all the conferences together. And that's where Jamie Loprice, her coming on board and becoming she's our president and CEO of the Alliance Fastpitch. She's the tip of the spear, right? Like she holds everything together. Because if we just cared about what's good for Texas, and I don't care about what's good for the Pacific Coast Fastpitch League or the Atlantic Coast Fastpitch League, this doesn't work.
Right.
And so we meet every week. Our leagues meet every week. We have commissioners, and they talk through how do we create this environment to make it better. So that's truly how the Alliance just kind of literally just organically became a thing. And last year was incredible. The national championship was awesome. Other than the fact that I lost in the national championship game. So that was the only downside for me. I'll tell you, the only bad memory I have of the Alliance is losing. But getting through that process, I'll never forget it. Just like anything else, the players are disheartened. We're at Oklahoma City. We played at Hall of Fame Stadium. We're at Oklahoma City. We just lost the national championship game. I have this 4 or 5 seniors that are looking there. And I said, how cool is this? You just replicated what you're fixing to do in the next 3 or 4 years, right? You've already been here. You've been through this. And when you get back here, and you all will, because they're all going to schools that LSU and Texas and places like that, you're all got a chance to be here. I want you to remember this moment. All right? Call upon these. This was cool. It sucks to have lost, but this was a cool opportunity for you. And I'm proud that I was part of this process with you. And that's the replication of college softball. I think college coaches, and I know they have talked about it, they appreciate the process the Alliance is. It's meant to be hard. This sport is very hard. It's meant to failure. It's a failure-driven sport. And we need to create an environment where we're building the toughest players and put armor on them. So when the moment gets hard, we're ready.
Absolutely. I go back to when the organic nature of which it started. And I think that is why it is such a success, because it wasn't something that was just thought up. Hey, let's do this. We got this going on, but let's rework something and make something, completely off the wall and different. And then hopefully it works. I mean, y'all made it out of necessity to keep the sport alive during the process or during COVID. And then you analyze the process. Okay, what's going to make this work? What's going to make this work? How are we going to do this? And then boom, once you made it work in Texas, you were able to share it, and it continues to grow, and you guys continue to, enhance what you guys are doing, and it makes it better for everyone. It's not like one person is gaining from it. It's everybody's gaining from it. It has everyone's best interest at heart. And I think that's why Alliance is what Alliance is.
Yeah, I think what's really cool about it, Tyler, is that the Texas Fastpitch League got better when the other leagues were created, because now they're sharing ideas that are making our league better. Mm-hmm. And that collaboration of effort towards a common goal, and the common goal, like if you were just, I know it's really cliche a lot of times to have a mission statement, right? And I'm not big on them. I'm big on direction, right? You ought to be able to look at a business or look at a person and see the direction they're going, right? And why that direction is either good for me as a consumer or not. And our direction is very simple. It's what's best for the sport. We declared that we had to be nimble. we have to be able to pivot and turn on a dime that makes the sport better. A good example is this. We expanded our national championship from 64 teams. It was meant to replicate college softball. The problem is there's more than 64 teams that are good enough to compete.
Right.
And so now it's 96 teams this year with the same structured format. Instead of 4 teams in a regional to start the national championship, there's 6. Like, we just pivoted as quickly as possible in an effort to make the sport better. And that came as a byproduct of putting people in a room and like minds. How can we make it better? Like, what makes it better, right? You know, one of the big things we talked about when it came down to the Alliance National Championship, national championships have gotten to be 7, 8, 9 days long, right? A family, I mean, the average American gets 2 weeks of vacation. I got to take both of my weeks just to go to your one national championship, which means I can't go to this event or that event. It was very clear for us. It had to be less than 7 days. We started with 5 this last year. We got it 1 day, which is a 0 day for our All-American game and our other stuff. But those are prerequisites. They're non-negotiables. It has to be less than a week's vacation. There has to be no state of play. We set the criteria for the cost of the event. Like, we've done some things that are in effort to really help benefit the sport, benefit parents, and benefit players. The membership has always been in the Alliance has been a membership-driven approach where players and coaches become members of the Alliance, right? And like, Jamie spends enormous amount of time and effort in trying to produce values to being a member of the Alliance, like over the top, right? It's like $50 a year to be part of the Alliance. She's trying to give it where you get $550 worth of value, right? Like, that's her daily goal, right? For her. And there's nobody better in our sport to be at the tip of that spear in trying to make the sport better, give back to it, and put it on a higher level. Like you and I started the conversation when it came to what girls and female athletes are being part of.